Greetings, unsettled souls. This is Sam I.B. Gangi of the Media Speaks, doing political commentary. I promise you I'll be doing more of the Trump updates in the studio. I know there's three in a row of just me in the living room, but if you had any idea how hard it was to be in a band and work in a haunted house and be a content writer and be a DJ and still do these shows, you would understand. Speaking of being in a band, after the show is done, I'm going to go ahead and give you just some random facts about something that happened to me today, which is interesting. Behind me, the rotting new pumpkin of Christelle. Christelle, I need to possibly look up taps here. It looks like this is really going to be the end of Christelle's pumpkin. I did want very much to make it last during the entire 12 days of Trump, but now I am greatly concerned that, as you can see, that's not going to be the case. So, as we go into the 12 days of Trump.
You know what I could do? I could carve a Trumpkin.
A Trumpkin?
And see if that'll last through the election.
You mean for the 12 days of Trump?
Oh, yes.
Well, see, that's what I'm saying, friends. That's why you tuned in. All right, well, it looks like it's time to... Yes, there you go. As she gets rid of the pumpkin. Goodbye. That's the end of it. It's also the sound of Hillary Clinton's election hopes. It was a nice witch hat. A Hillary Clinton witch hat. I've got a pumpkin for a head. All right, friends, before everybody tunes out, if you don't like silliness, I don't know how you found us to begin with. If you want nuts and bolts, and want seriousness, all right, fine, I got tons of seriousness. Check this out. Trump's Gettysburg Address. This is from dailymail.co.uk. The closing argument for choosing him, why you should choose him. And he unveils his first 100-day agenda. Now, how many times have you heard people saying he doesn't have any concrete plans? Yes, he does. That pisses me off so much. The only people that say something like that are people that haven't taken the time to go to his site and actually see what his plans are. Ignore the hair I had to show. They don't go to see what his plans are. They want him to lay out his plans in the middle of a campaign rally. That's not how you do it, friends. I mean, you lay out the ideas and then you put the nuts and bolts on your site, which is what he's done since day one. Well, he promises the kind of change that only arrives once in a lifetime. And I agree. I mean, in my 43 years of life, I've never seen anything that brings me as much hope. I know you guys won't look it up, so I'm going to scroll down slowly, and you guys are just going to want to hit pause from time to time and actually read this article, because it is pretty amazing. I am going to go over the main points of it. I don't want to read the whole thing because it's going to go on and on forever if I do that. But I can go over the nuts and bolts. And clearly, it's on Daily Mail. Look up the rest yourself. Here's his to-do list for anti-corruption. Constitutional amendment to impose term limits on members of Congress. I'm iffy on that one, to tell you the truth, because then you're going to lose people like Justin Amish as well. You wouldn't have had Ron Paul for as long if you do that. A hiring freeze on federal employees to reduce the workforce through attrition. That's important. You know what that means? He wants to get rid of a lot of people that are working for the federal government, and that's a lot of jobs. I mean, we talk about how when Hillary Clinton moved in to shut down the coal industry, and Obama and the crazy left, we've talked about repeatedly how that's unemploying a lot of people without reason, because there is no global war. Well, he's not man-made. Well, this is the same thing. Trump is going to get rid of federal waste, not by firing a bunch of people that are already hired in the federal government, by putting a hiring freeze on it. When people get fired, when people change jobs, when people leave, he's not hiring anybody to replace them, and will slowly shrink it down without destroying the structure of the families that have already put many years in with the federal government and the secretaries, whatever, may or may not be part of the corruption. It's good to know. That's a plan. That's a good plan. And if you don't think it's a good plan, then I don't know what's wrong with you. 3, requirement to eliminate 2 federal regulations for every new one. Every time you want to put a new federal regulation in that limits how a business can grow, or when you can open a business, or where you can open a business, you have to eliminate 2 federal regulations that existed prior. A 5-year ban on White House and congressional officials from becoming lobbyists. That means they cannot sell their access and their add to their affluence via corruption. 5, lifetime ban on White House officials lobbying foreign governments. In other words, you can't be a president that then goes out and does something like works out a deal with Saudi Arabia that rapes women and burns their private sexual organs off with a blowtorch, which they do. And 6, complete ban on foreign lobbyists raising money for American elections. In other words, it's time to get rid of the Manchurian candidate. Uh, Time to get rid of the corruption that comes with that sort of thing. Again, make sure you're pausing this as I go through if you're reading the article. His pledges on immigration and rule of law. Cancel Obama's unconstitutional executive orders, memoranda, and orders. In other words, a lot of people don't know this. Originally, the idea of an executive order was used by, I think it was George Washington, when his wife wanted to buy like plant pots and things to liven up the way the White House looked. And by executive order, he allotted her the money to do it. It was never, it was like, what do they call petty cash today? It was never meant to be, many listeners coming in, thank you, please hit share. It was never meant to be something where the stroke of a pen passed some ridiculous law that didn't make it through Congress. Executive order was like a petty cash jar, for lack of a better way to put it. He wants to pick a conservative replacement for Antonin Scalia. That's very important, unless, of course, you don't want any Second Amendment at all and probably lose most of your first. 3, cancel all federal funding to sanctuary cities. These are cities that harbor illegal immigrants and allow them to work and refuse to deport them. They would receive no federal funding. 4, begin removing the 2 million criminal immigrants from the U.S. and cancel visas to countries that will not repatriate them. That means take them back. Suspend immigration from terror-prone regions where incoming people can't be properly vetted. Now, those two in a row right there that I'm highlighting, he's not saying those 2 million people cannot apply legally. He's saying they cannot stay because they have gotten here illegally. Second of all, suspending immigration from terror regions is just common sense. If you don't believe that, then go ahead and look up Germany. Go ahead and look up Sweden becoming the rape capital of the world when Sweden has always been one of the most peaceful places to live in the entire globe. What's his plans for jobs? All right, negotiate the NAFTA or withdrawal from it. Wonderful. I say withdrawal, but renegotiations would work. Withdrawal from the Trans-Pacific Partnership. That's important unless you want more outsourcing and you want the UN deciding what should be legal for American businesses. 3, order the Secretary of the Treasury to label China a currency manipulator. If you don't know what that is, it's the way that they devalue their money so that they can sell more things at a better price and then raise the price later. 4, use U.S. and of course, when you do that, then your money is never worth what it says it's worth, except for when you claim it needs to be, and that's never when you pay back. It's always when you borrow, or never when you borrow, always when you pay back. You see why? Because the money's worth more on the other end that way. 4, use U.S. and international laws to end foreign trading abuses that unfairly impact American workers. I don't know. Are you an American worker? Do you know one? Seems practical to me. 5, lift restrictions on the production of $50 trillion worth of U.S. energy reserves, including shale, natural gas, and coal. Notice he doesn't say nuclear. That makes me very, very, very happy. For those of you that follow me, a massive Fukushima update after the elections. 6, approve the Keystone XL project. Yes, thank God. 7, cancel billions of dollars in payments to the UN climate change programs and use that money to improve U.S. water and environmental infrastructure. In other words, we're tied into the United Nations right now, and we're paying a lot of money because of carbon emissions that they're raking us for because of global warming. There is no freaking global warming, but you're taking the money anyway. Trump is saying, all right, if you care so much about the environment, how about we don't give any money to the UN at all for these initiatives? Instead, we take that money and we make sure that our water in the United States is healthy. We make sure that the environment is taken care of here. We can limit the amount. You hear him talk about clean coal. He never talks about coal unless he says the word clean coal. In order to get clean coal, there are a number of adjustments that need to be made to coal plants that cost too much to do. Trump is saying if we don't give this needless money to the UN, then we can afford to do this, and then coal will not be giving us lung cancer. You know what? That's fine with me. Where is the problem there? Scrolling slowly for those of you hitting pause to read the article. Uh, Trump's laws, bills that he would push in the first 100 days. The Middle Class Tax Relief and Simplification Act. It's an economic plan designed to grow the economy 4%. Right now we're growing at 1 or less per year and create 25 million new jobs. Involves tax cuts, trade reform, regulatory relief, lifting regulations on energy production, and encouraging companies with offshore funds to bring the money back to America. How is that bad? End the Offshoring Act. That's obvious. Three, American Energy and Infrastructure Act. Use public and private partnerships and tax incentives to generate $1 trillion with a T dollars in infrastructure investments over the next 10 years. That means better bridges. That means better roads. Four, School Choice and Education Opportunity Act. Pretty much that says you won't be spent. Let's say you have a kid that's in a school district that's just terrible, but they can't go to another school because of where they live. This lets you pick your school. You can use charter schools. You can use homeschooling. It puts the parent back in control of the education. Doesn't limit standards. There's still a number of things that you have to do in order to graduate. It's not making it easier. It's just changing where you do it at because let's face it, many schools are war zones. Repeal and replace Obamacare. We all know that that's ruined insurance. It's made my rates go through the absolute roof. It replaces the Obamacare with health savings accounts and removes barriers from purchasing insurance across state lines. It allows states to manage Medicaid funds, not the government, the states, thank you, and speeds up drug approval inside the FDA. Now, that's very important. I'll tell you why. If you are someone, let's say you have some horrible disease, and there's a chance that this pill is going to help you, but it hasn't been fully tested. He's saying it's up to the person who is sick to decide whether or not they wish to take that gas. Now, this isn't like the Tuskegee experiments where you don't tell the person. He's saying let's speed things up a little bit, if at all possible. End the Illegal Immigration Act. This is very important. Funds a wall on the U.S.-Mexican border with the full understanding that the country of Mexico will be reimbursing the United States. It establishes a 2-year mandatory minimum federal prison sentence for illegally re-entering the U.S. after deportation. That means you do not come back in as soon as we send you home, unless you do it legally. 5-year mandatory minimum for felons who illegally enter, and 5 years for coming back after multiple deportations. And it increases penalties for overstaying visas. Good. It makes people do it legally, to which he also wants to make cheaper. I wish he would mention that more, because he very much does. 6. I read these out of order, my bad. Affordable Care, Child Care, and an Elder Care Act. It just provides tax deductions for people who need to take care of children as well as older adults. And as someone who has lost both parents, I can see why that's important. 8. Restoring the Community Safety Act. It creates a task force on violent crime, increases federal funding of police forces, and boosts federal support for anti-gang prosecutions. Restoring the National Security Act. That eliminates the federal defense sequester to restore military funding. It guarantees veterans, those that fight for us, it gives them the option of private health care, not with the VA, if the VA facility has long waiting times. That's important. And you get that? Right now, our vets are trapped in the VA, even if the VA is giving them awful service. This says you can use any hospital you want if the VA is full, and it still will be covered under the VA. It will be paid for with the insurance through the VA, I should say. It also institutes new defenses against cyber attacks, establishes new immigration screening based on values. That's good. 10. Clean up corruption in Washington acts. That's obvious. Enacts new ethics reforms affecting politicians and their staffers. What is wrong with this? What is vague about this? Again, let me go back up so I can go slowly for those of you hitting pause. What is vague about this? I'm sorry, I don't see a vagueness here. What I do see is a man. I'm sorry, friends. What I do see is a man with a very good plan here. I don't see what's not to like. I do know this. If you go to Hillary's site, yeah, she lays out what she wants. She wants to tax you to death. She wants to make Obamacare even more cumbersome. And there's nothing in it that really benefits anyone. Go look. Go compare what I just told you to what she wants to do. Don't log off if you're a regular listener. If you only tuned in for Trump, that is your massive, well, I should say your Trump date, your Trump 12 Days of Trump Day 4. Please donate to the show if you can. The correct views at hotmail.com. Every penny you give to me goes towards a better show. And again, I appreciate you watching. For those of you still watching, you notice I have blue in my hair, and I'm downstairs at my house like I have been. I've been working on a haunted house lately, and I had a Halloween show today. And I just want to throw this out there. And this is my problem with modern music, and not modern music. I take that back. There's a lot of new bands I like, so that doesn't apply. Radio music. I don't care if it's Nickelback or if it's this Scary Perry, Katy Perry. I don't like the fact that we've entered a time when nobody on mainstream music has any idea how to play an instrument. Oh, you've got tons of new bands that are absolutely amazing at it. Animals as leaders, for instance. But what you don't have is skill in how to play an instrument. Well, I'm in a band that's oftentimes called industrial. Look up youtube.com/Sam from Passing Time, War on For Your Mind, Passing Time Band on Facebook. You'll find me. Um, we had a mixer die today on stage on a Halloween show in Kent at the Outpost. And I remember hearing a long time ago that one of my heroes, but he dropped the ball here, Nine Inch Nails, Trent Reznor, years of classical musical training and everything else. He had a sequencer die at Lollapalooza at the first show and couldn't go on. They just didn't play. I decided that was not going to be the case. When we weren't able to run any of the loops, we tried a couple songs and it just didn't work. Immediately, my bassist and I went straight into playing neoclassical music. We did an upbeat version of Fury Lease. We played scary cemetery music in the cemetery for you passing time fans. And we just did it. We just played our music and without any sequences, just stood up there and rocked it. So I mean, learn to play instruments, people, even if you've got loops behind you, because someday you might be called upon to play that instrument. And if you're just standing there holding a note down on the keyboard, you're going to be screwed if you end up in the position that I was in. Thank you for listening, friends. Good night. God bless. And day 5 of your 12 Days of Trump tomorrow.